Welcome to Does It Matter by Brainy Ballers, where we dissect the game with cutting-edge analytics to give you the upper hand. We analyze everything from hand sizes to average depth of targets to uncover hidden trends that no one else sees. Say goodbye to guesswork and hello to data-driven domination. Because here at Brainy Ballers, we don't just watch the game, we understand it. So get ready, it's podcast time.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really getting into it with a classic sports metric, you know the one, the NFL 40-yard dash. And we're asking a pretty direct question. Does a super fast 40 time, does it really predict success for wide receivers in the NFL? We're going to challenge some common ideas here using some serious data.
That's right. So this comes from our Does It Matter series. And the methodology here was pretty thorough. We looked really closely at NFL Combine data, specifically the top 50 PPR finishers, that's point per reception, for fantasy scoring wide receivers season by season from 2003 right up to 2023. And we broke them down into tiers, top 5, top 10, then the next groups, 1130, 3150. We even defined a bottom 10 as those guys finishing 41st to 50th. The mission basically was to pull out the key takeaways and honestly some pretty surprising facts.
Okay, so when we first looked at this, the initial results were confusing, a bit messy. You'd think there'd be something obvious jumping out. Faster guys do better. But just looking at averages across those tiers or comparing the top 10 guys to the bottom 10 guys using this differences chart, it highlighted two time ranges.
Do you want to start dominating your drafts? At BrainyBallers.com, we've researched every metric under the sun for you to find which ones are best linked to fantasy points. You can access hundreds of metrics to sharpen your scouting abilities so you know which metrics matter and which are just noise. Stop guessing on which thresholds to look for within each metric. Big numbers can be misleading or irrelevant. Our Ultimate Athlete Blueprints reveal essential scouting metrics, their importance, and benchmarks within each metric that help predict a player's probability of being a success or bust. Elevate your scouting ability with Brainy Ballers' Ultimate Athlete Blueprints today. Click the link in the description. Now back to the show.
4.36 to 4.47 seconds, and another one 4.51 to 4.62. But honestly, it showed nothing clear and obvious, just didn't jump out, a real head scratcher. So what happened when you applied the proper stats to it?
Okay, so that's exactly where things clicked. Despite what feels intuitive, right? That raw speed must matter for receivers. Our standard statistical regression test showed an extremely low correlation between 40-yard dash times and fantasy production for these guys.
How low are we talking?
Okay, get this. The precise Pearson value, and this is from a sample size of 702 athletes. It was 0.004.
0.004.
Yep.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit because 0.004 correlation, that's basically zero, right?
So it's effectively zero. Yeah.
So for anyone not super familiar, a Pearson value tells you how strongly two things are linked in a straight line kind of way. One is perfect positive, -1 perfect negative, and 0 is just no link at all. So 0.004 means zip, no connection between the 40 time and scoring fantasy points.
Pretty much. To be considered meaningful, statistically speaking, you usually want a Pearson value over 0.1 or maybe under -0.1. So 0.004 is way off. Now compare that to something like draft capital for running backs. We looked at that too. The Pearson value there was -0.234, which is, significantly stronger. It just hammers home the point. For wide receiver fantasy success, the 40 time isn't a reliable predictor, not statistically.
So if the overall correlation is basically non-existent, did the research just stop there? Or did you try to find any angle where speed might matter?
Well, that's a good point. We didn't just stop. Knowing how much focus it gets, the research did push a bit further. It tried to see if maybe there was an optimal range, like a sweet spot for the 40 time, even if the overall link is weak. And by digging into the numbers, fine-tuning it, the research did find a range. 4.32 to 4.44 seconds. And receivers in that specific range, they actually showed a 12.2% increase in how often they finished in the top 10 compared to the bottom 10 guys. For a second, you think, aha, okay, there's something.
Right, a 12% bump sounds like something. But here's where it gets really interesting, isn't it?
Exactly. That's the twist. Because even with that, let's call it exciting, 12.2% increase, you have to remember the massive lack of statistical support from the overall regression test. It really suggests that this little bump within the optimal range is probably more about luck or maybe other factors aligning than the 40 time itself being the driver. Honestly, that was pretty shocking given the pedestal we put the 40 on.
And it gets even more complicated when you look at how things have changed over time, right? The decadal differences.
Yeah, precisely. any faint trend we might have seen. Even within that supposedly optimal 4.32 to 4.44 range, it actually got weaker in the more recent decade we studied. So whatever small connection might have existed, it seems to be fading. Maybe offenses are changing, maybe teams value different things now. It suggests the 40 is becoming even less useful as a predictor today.
Okay, so the main takeaway here for you listening is pretty clear. Despite the massive hype, that 40-yard dash number for wide receivers, it doesn't reliably predict fantasy production success. It's kind of like focusing only on top speed when buying a car, maybe ignoring how well it actually, handles turns or accelerates off the line.
Well put.
So think about this next time you're watching the combine, or maybe looking at rookie profiles. What will you be focusing on? Are you still going to be fixated on that big 40-yard dash number? Or has this deep dive maybe changed how you think about assessing real athletic skill for NFL wide receivers? Something to consider.